Welcome back to Footballology. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts for their offseason grade. And the one thing about the Colts was they knew going into the 2020 season they were missing one key piece, and that was the quarterback position. And they went out and they felt like they got a guy in Phillip Rivers that was really going to give them opportunity to really flourish and give them that deep into the playoff run. And I think Phillip Rivers was happy with the signing as well. They had a really good, strong offensive line. They drafted a young guy in Jonathan Taylor to really improve their running game. And then they also had Marlon Mack on the roster, who was supposed to be something, but he couldn't stay healthy. And then having guys like Naeem Hines back there as well. Just they had a really decent core of skill position players. Drafting Michael Pittman in the second round definitely gave them opportunity to be a little bit more threatening on the outside. I personally am not the biggest T.Y. Hilton fan because I feel like he's kind of like the deep route guy, and that's about it. But getting Michael Pittman definitely, I felt like, gave them a little bit more balance. And then, like I said, the offensive line stout, strong, especially with Quentin Nelson being at the guard position. I don't know how a guard does it, but that just proves how great Quentin Nelson really is. He just improved that whole offensive line with his play alone. And then we flip it to the defense side of the ball. Signing a guy like DeForest Buckner to a big contract was definitely clutch. Having a guy like Darius Leonard back in the middle of that defense was awesome. And then Justin Houston, who I personally, as a Chiefs fan, love as a pass rusher, and I'm kind of mad that he's still a free agent and the Chiefs haven't made their way to go get him. And then picking up Xavier Rhodes on a one-year prove-it deal, and when he basically came out and proved that he was still a top corner, everybody thought he was kind of washed up. So I love that signing by the Colts too. So overall, the 2020 season for the Colts was unsuccessful because they didn't win the championship. But when you really think about where this team was at just the year prior, you can see that they were always trending in the right direction. So they didn't take much. They didn't need much from this offseason to stay in the right position. So now moving over to the Indianapolis Colts offseason transactions, the biggest and the most notable one is Carson Wentz trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. I love this trade. Once again, they're bringing a veteran-type quarterback, and he's on the younger side, obviously. Phillip Rivers was a one-and-done retirement. We thought he may get in 2 years, but he only had the 1 year left in him. And so bringing in Carson Wentz, a guy that's still fairly young and still has, I think personally, a lot of good games in front of him, definitely is going to give this team all the momentum that they need. Now their most important position, once again, is fulfilled on their roster because, like I said, the 2019 season, that was their biggest downfall, is not having that quarterback position, and that really hurt them in the long run. But bringing in Phillip Rivers last year showed them that they were just a veteran, or at least a more consistent quarterback away from being a more contending team or a more competitive team down the stretch. So bringing in Carson Wentz is definitely a big deal. I love that transaction, hands down. Looking at Marlon Mack on a 1 year contract, I think Marlon Mack being hurt last year definitely just said, hey, let's see what you still got, if you still got something left in the tank. Marley Cox definitely gave them some quality snaps from the tight end position. And Zach Pascal, I think at this point is just purely for depth purposes. I'm not sure what the wide receiver position is going to look like this year, but it was purely for depth purposes. Bringing back Xavier Rhodes for 1 more year. I don't know if they're just going to keep doing these 1 year deals with him, or if he's going to keep doing the 1 year deals, or what's going to happen there. But once again, bringing back Xavier Rhodes was probably one of the top transactions for them this offseason. And I thought they probably would have signed him for a little bit longer than 1 year, just for the simple fact that you get him in and he kind of improved your secondary. He gave your secondary a little bit more fluidity on the back end, and especially, you still have Rocky Sin at the number 2, but it gave him a little bit more. I think Kenny Moore is their nickel, but I love Xavier Rhodes playing that one spot and being a possible corner that could take away a team's number 1 receiver. T.Y. Hilton, he was on the fence for the longest time on the re-signing, and like I said, not the biggest T.Y. Hilton fan, but I get why they bring him back. Let's see what other transactions there. Obviously the Colts are going to definitely pick up his 5th year option on Quentin Nelson. That goes without said. And then we see some of their draft picks. We're going to get into those a little bit later. I think there was one other transaction I wanted to take a look at real quick, and I can't find it for some reason. Oh, there it is. Eric Fisher. So the Eric Fisher signing with Anthony Costanzo retiring and leaving football, they needed a left tackle. Now, once again, a former Chief, a guy that personally I was never high on Eric Fisher until we lost Eric Fisher here in Kansas City. And once we lost Eric Fisher, I'm not including the Super Bowl, I'm talking about pre-Super Bowl. But once we lost Eric Fisher, we seen that it was hurting. Like, he was good enough at his job to the point where you didn't know much about him. And I think that he's going to add some level of consistency to this Indianapolis Colts offensive line at the left tackle position. They don't need a lot, but if you got You got Quentin Nelson playing to your right of you if you're Eric Fisher. You got Quentin Nelson to the right of you, and you're playing left tackle. I think that left side is still going to be just as good as it was with Costanzo being there. So once again, you get a young quarterback or a younger quarterback that has the opportunity to flourish and still has a lot of good ball in front of him. You bring in a tackle. Granted, he's coming off an Achilles tear. Hopefully that doesn't affect him down the stretch, and you guys can get him in a good amount of time. But you just little things like that I think is going to go a long way in this team being successful. So now we move over to the Indianapolis Colts draft. First off, Kwity Paye in the first round. I don't hate it and I don't like it. It was just, I think we've been spoiled with a lot of pass rushers over the last couple of years. So you look at a guy like Kwity Paye or Gregory Rousseau or some of the other guys that came out this year, we just was not like sure about them because they had a lot of unknown around them. But I think it was just more or less because we just been spoiled with pass rushers. But the Colts were one of the few teams who had the luxury to just do things whatever with their picks. But I would have been interested in see if they could have traded back and still got paid. And like I said, don't hate it, don't love it, but definitely understand why they took him. Losing a guy like Justin Houston in free agency, you want to see if you can fill that void. And just adding more talent to this front seven that's already ferocious, in my personal opinion. Moving down the list a little bit more, the 5th round pick, Sean Davis, was a guy that I was really interested in. I was doing some research on some Florida DBs. Sean Davis was a guy that I felt like didn't get no hype at all, but he was a guy that was really interesting from the perspective that I thought he could add more value, or at least like box safety, or he can play high, whatever defense he decided to play in. I think he had a lot of flexibility in his game to give a team whatever they really needed, and maybe even some special teams play. Now the pick that kind of threw me off was the Sam Engler pick. I think I butchered his name. Ellinger or whatever, the Texas quarterback. It threw me off because of the simple fact I thought Jacob Eason was going to be this guy to take over for Phillip Rivers, but the coach said they didn't trust him essentially by going out and trading for Carson Wentz. And then I was like, okay, well, Jacob Eason gets to sit a little bit longer. Maybe he, grooms a little bit longer. That Wentz runs the offense, and then hopefully Eason comes in. But then they take Sam from Texas. Not saying Sam is going to start over Eason or anything like that, but it was just really interesting, the simple fact that I think everybody thought Jacob Eason was the quarterback, and then at this point in time now it's like we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like after Carson Wentz. So maybe it was just to create more competition, maybe to get some fire lit under Jacob Eason, I'm not sure, but I thought Eason was going to be the guy. So the Sam Engler pick, I can't say his name, I'm butchering it. It threw me off. I don't know. So then we moved down to the 7th round pick. I like both of their 7th round picks, to be honest. I did some quick research on them a couple of days ago, and the Mike Starchin, I don't know how you say his last name, from Charleston, 6'5" receiver. I already love him. Once I heard 6'5" receiver, I was already on board. But he was a guy that, at Charleston that, was a big body receiver. And I think that's once again, I think the Colts are trying to add more size to their outside perimeter. Like I said, T.Y. Hilton was not my favorite receiver because I think he was just like a one-trick pony. But adding more size to the outside of perimeter, guys like Michael Pittman, now you got this guy from Charleston, once again, not saying he's going to start right away, but it just adds that depth and that size that eventually if you get down the red zone, you're not a one-trick pony when you get down there. If you got two towers on the outside, I can go either way with fade balls. And then Will Fries, the guard at Penn State, once again, just fortifying the offensive line that, it needs some fortifying, but not a lot. So luxury picks right here, both wide receiver and the guard, not something you dying for, but something that can add some value to your team or to your roster. So overall, I think the Indianapolis Colts earned themselves an A this offseason. Now, Chris Ballard and Frank Reich clearly have this team going in the right direction. In years past, I've been very crucial about the Colts and everything that they've done as an organization and if they're making the right moves or anything. But it seemed like over the last couple of seasons, they've only made great moves, both free agency or trade-wise and in the draft. They're getting guys that are going to add value to their roster, getting guys that are going to add quality play to their roster and add depth as well. So I really love the way they're going, and like I said, this offseason was purely about luxury, and even with the luxury picks that they had in place, they still made good and great intelligent picks. They made a team, or they built their team even more depth, and it probably added more competition to their roster as well. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're a Colts fan, definitely give this a thumbs up. And let me know what you think in the comment section below about you guys' offseason so far. And if you feel like you guys can be a playoff caliber team or a team that can get to the AFC Championship or even to the Super Bowl. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll be waiting for you guys to reply. And if you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel today and become a footballologist. And stay safe, football fans.